All right, so we finally get to start World War One. Exciting. Um, so for this unit, you have that big project, the website that you're going to build with your group. So what I really want to do or be able to do is help you work on that in class and kind of teach you everything else while you're at home in the evening. So you'll have some kind of like little video to watch just about every night, probably. All right. To start everything off, the U.S. So World War One starts without the United States being involved. Ultimately, all of the imperial giants, the European imperial giants, are going to start pressuring the U.S. to drift away from its isolationist tendency and then gravitate more towards more and more involvement. And so we'll talk about that um, gradual involvement in the next couple of days. As far as World War One starting, what you're going to have is 4 long-term causes of World War One, and then you're going to have like the event that kicks it all off. So your long-term causes are militarism, alliances, imperialism, and nationalism. And how we remember that is the acronym MAIN, MAIN. So I've highlighted those in red for you, and that's just like you should just remember MAIN. MAIN is the 4 main causes of World War One, and that's militarism, alliances, imperialism, and nationalism. So we're going to talk about each one individually. Militarism essentially means the development of armed forces and their use as a tool of diplomacy. So we've kind of talked about the whole imperialism situation. We talked about it from the U.S. perspective, but like I said, the European nations are already doing that too, before we were, and then while we are imperializing as well. But while they are imperializing, they're spreading out throughout the world, and that's really costly to keep up. And you also have to spend a lot of money to defend it. And so what you'll see is a huge increase in military spending amongst the European nations. The strongest nation on the European continent is Germany at that point in time by 1890. It had set up an army reserve system and drafted and trained a lot of their young men. And at first, Britain is really not super alarmed by Germany's military expansion. And, because they're an island nation, they'd always relied on their navy for everything. So their navy is the strongest in the world. So they don't really see Germany as that big of a threat. However, that's going to change in 1897 when the German Kaiser believes that, well, it's time for us to be the most powerful sea power in the world. And so as soon as that competition kicks off, it's like they're off to the races, and they're both going to start pushing for an even bigger and bigger navy. The second long-term cause is alliances. So the alliance system, there's 2 major defense alliances in Europe by 1907. So the first one is the Triple Entente, and that's later known as the Allies. And when we refer to this in class, we'll refer to this group as the Allies. So this consists of France, Great Britain, and Russia. And then the alternative alliance system is the Triple Alliances, and that's Germany, Austria, Hungary, and Italy. And it also includes the Ottoman Empire as well, and that's, the lands in the Middle East. And they're controlled by the Turks. And so that's later known as the Central Powers. So when we talk about this alliance system, I'm going to refer to them as the Allies and the Central Powers. And so this system of alliances was actually something that the European powers thought would deter from war, because who would want to declare war on one country knowing that 2 others are going to jump right in with them? Because that's a huge cost, and that's really hard to keep up with, is, multiple powers in one war. What they didn't know is that that's ultimately not going to work out in the end. So your next one is imperialism. So I feel like we've kind of exhausted the whole imperialism issue, but colonies they're going to supply their countries with goods, raw materials, so that they can keep producing. And then because those countries are producing so much, the colonies offer them a marketplace to sell a lot of the goods that they're making. So as Germany industrializes, it competes with France and Great Britain in the contest for colonies. And they're going to try to build the biggest and baddest empires. The last one is nationalism. So throughout the 19th century, the politics in the Western world were influenced by a lot of this nationalism, which is a devotion to the interests and culture of one's nation. So I wouldn't really call this it's not the same as patriotism, because I feel like nationalism is on a different level. Nationalism is almost to a crazy level, you would do whatever it takes to defend your country. And then it also kind of goes along with the different ethnic groups that are going to resent the domination by these huge European powers. And they wanted their own independent nation. So a lot of these ethnic groups, they look to larger nations for protection, though. And Russia regards itself as, this protector of Europe's Slavic people. And so no matter which government they lived under, it didn't matter. Russia was their protector. So among these Slavic people are the Serbs of Serbia, and they're located in the Balkans, and they're ultimately going to be they're going to cause a situation, which I'm sure you've heard about 100 times by now. But because of this domination of Serbia, Russia and Austria-Hungary are going to be rivals over their influence of that particular country. So Austria-Hungary has a stake in this because they control, the Serbs lived under the rule of Austria-Hungary. So Serbia is in this area known as the Balkan Peninsula, and the European powers really refer to this as the powder keg of Europe, because there's multiple problems in that area, and it's ultimately one reason why you're going to have the situation that we are going to talk about here next. So there's a lot of European interest in that particular region. Russia, like we talked about, they really feel ultimately like they have this protective, almost like big brother mentality over the Serbs. Austria-Hungary, obviously, also wants a huge, they dominate that region. And then there's Germany, who wanted this rail line to connect them with the Ottoman Empire. Austria-Hungary had taken over Bosnia in 1878 and accused Serbia of kind of subverting its rule over Bosnia. And so this is why it's the whole powder keg of Europe situation. So in June of 1914, Archduke Franz Ferdinand, he's the heir to the throne, the Austrian throne, and they're visiting the Bosnian capital of Sarajevo. And so as they're driving through the city, a Serbian nationalist jumps out in front of the caravan, or the motorcade, really, and shoots the Archduke and his wife. And, the Archduke ends up passing away. So, Gavrilo Princip, he is the person that steps out and shoots these two people. He's a member of the Black Hand, which is essentially a really early form of a terrorist group, because they were responsible for a lot of disruptions in that Balkan Peninsula area. So with the assassination of Archduke Franz Ferdinand, it's going to just set off this whole crisis. So Austria-Hungary is going to declare war on Serbia, which they thought that it was going to be this super short war because they're fighting this puny little country. But the alliance system is what ultimately kicks this off into a much bigger deal. So on August 1st, Germany, who's obligated to their treaty with, supporting Austria-Hungary, they declare war on Russia, who had jumped in to help the Serbs. And then on August 3rd, Germany declares war on Russia's ally France, and then everyone declares war on each other, and the Great War is officially here, and it's here to stay for a few years. So next time we'll talk about, your next video will kind of be about like the beginning of the war and also slowly how the United States gets involved, because we're not there yet. We're just talking about a European war at this point in time.